continue to delve into the mysteries that are hidden in plain sight until we no longer need to see by the light of existence. And it's affirmed again, could it be, is it possible that we ourselves are these mysteries hidden in plain sight until now? Most of us know the story of Divine Mother, how one day when there was a knock on her door, she opened it to find there a being who said to her, I am Viveka. Now in Sanskrit, Viveka means discernment or discrimination, but this being was later called the messenger, because after being with Divine Mother for a month, she gave Divine Mother a word, a key, a master key that could open the consciousness of not only individuals, but the collective. So there's a story about a group of travelers and merchants who had come by means of various camel trains to a caravanserai at the edge of a desert. Now, after partaking of a tray of rice pilaf, they all sat around the fire, and one amongst them said, have you heard the story of the Princess of Fantastistan? And then a merchant amongst them, one who came from, it said, Bokhara, he piped up and he said, you mean Fantasyland? And it seemed that everyone amongst them let out a sigh, a collective sigh of recognition. It seemed that everyone knew Fantasy Land. So the narrator, adjusting his patched-work robe, started his story as all those who were gathered there, some sipped on their peppermint tea and others chewed on their cheroots. Servants put more wood on the fire. And the narration began. The story of a king, a young king, a virile king, who longed for a queen, but had not found amongst those princesses and maidens who had been paraded before him, one who captured his heart. So he found diversion in going hunting, until one day in the forest, on his favorite steed and chasing a deer, he came across a maiden and immediately was smitten. Even though she was dressed in a simple shift, she was beautiful, and he instantly fell in love. When he asked her who she was, she merely lowered her doe-like eyes and said nothing. But after a little while, he could resist no more, and he gathered her up and placed her on his steed and took her back to his palace, where after some time, dressed in the finest of silk, a wedding took place. Now in that palace the king had returned to his mother and his 3 sisters, the previous king having died long since. And it was found by all their servants, courtiers, and the like, found that this maiden was sweet and kind and gentle and always happy. After 9 months she gave birth to a son, but by this time the sisters of the king had grown jealous, and they started to put out rumors about the new queen. Where did she come from? Maybe she was just a peasant girl in the forest. And this crept out from around the palace and amongst those who also followed the other princesses, out into the world at large, and doubt seeped out into people's minds as the worthiness of this maiden to be a queen to all the people. And after a while, the princess, now the queen, found that it was unbearable. The barbs, the snide remarks, and the jealousy that was palpable around her. She thought, I cannot live with this. It is not good for the king for this to be out amongst the people. I had best go back to whence I came. So one day, when the king was out hunting, the queen gathered her small son, wrapped him in a blanket, and crept out of the palace. But as things were, of course, she was watched at every moment, and there were those jealous courtiers who wanted to keep tags on her and thought perhaps she was going back to her roots that would show that she was a peasant and unworthy to be a queen. So she was followed. She went out into the forest from whence she came, and feeling again that peacefulness, remembering the kindness of the animals, the woodcutters and others who had been there for her through those many years, she felt peaceful and at home. But she was followed by those jealous courtiers, until there came a moment when, entering one of those forest glades, before her eyes there was the most magnificent palace that one could ever imagine. Now even those who followed her were amazed at its magnificence, marble pillars and the like. But as they watched, and the maiden approached the gates of this great edifice, trumpets sounded, and the gates opened, and there there, standing there, was a queen, dressed in the greatest of finery, and beside her, obviously a king with a golden crown, and they opened their arms to her, saying, "Welcome, our beloved daughter," taking her and her son in their arms, but then mentioning, "Invite those who are following you to come in." And so it was that she, her son, and those who had been behind her came in and were given hospitality such has never been known and experienced before. There was no doubt that those courtiers were ashamed and abashed and embarrassed by the opulence, the welcome, the obvious royalty of this maiden. So it was not long before, in their embarrassment, they took their leave and hastened back from whence they came. But in the meantime, the king had come back from his hunt, and not finding his beloved wife, asked, "Where was she?" And those who were left behind, but knew in which direction she had gone, pointed the way. So he found his way to the forest glade, and himself was embraced and welcomed by the king and the queen. Now after the feasting that took place, the king and queen of that place said to the king, "Go back to your palace to take care of your kingdom, and leave our beloved daughter with us for one more night. We will take care of her and send her back to you." So the king left, and the queen, the maiden, was left with her beloved parents. After that night, when she woke up in the morning, the palace was gone, and she found herself alone with her son in the forest glade. But then the queen appeared to her and said, "Our beloved daughter, we passed away long since and left you in the care of the woodchoppers, the animals and birds of the forest. But when we saw how badly you were being treated in the place that you found yourself after your wedding, we were given permission to come back using all that was available in creation for 7 days and 7 nights. But now we must return, but we leave it all to you." And she disappeared. We know the end of the story. The maiden, the queen, returned to the palace where she and her beloved king reigned for all the years that were there for them. perhaps we can now ask ourselves, now that we can claim that we do see, we can say, I do see, without the aid of my sensory awareness or the machinations of my mind, or my street smarts, or my intuition, or my oneness. I see. I know. And when we can say, I see, we have the possibility of recognizing that we have the key, the master key that opens up the consciousness of not only individuals, but the collective. But first, to claim, to be able to stand and say, in front of any being or any experience, I see. And then we have the possibility of claiming this key, the master key. The mystery hidden until now in plain sight.